What up guys, Neo here. We were hit by a new patch. It's not groundbreaking or anything, but there's definitely tweaks to some interesting stuff. We followed this throughout the PTR development and now it finally hit the live servers. So everybody who's playing Warcraft 3, whether it be Battle.net or War 3 Champions, is playing with this version of Warcraft 3. So what did Blizzard bring us? It was quite a nice surprise, I gotta say, that only after 8 weeks or so after patch 1.35 was there, we already got updated balance and also a lot of bug fixes, plus another few additions that I want to point out here. First of all, there's seasons in Battle.net. Obviously, in multiplayer modes, there's got to be seasons. And originally, they wanted this to span out throughout the entire year, which is pretty crazy. On War 3 Champions, it's between 3 and 4 months. Blizzard has now decided that 6 months is doable for them. Still, War 3 Champions is better. In general, a quarter of a season is nice to have. A quarter of a year as a season is nice to have. But 6 months is definitely a lot better than 1 year, which gets stale really well. Especially since we hope to get some balance and or content updates with every new season. We mentioned this before, the UI got tweaked a little bit, looks a tiny bit nicer, but it's very detail oriented, so we don't want to go into this too much. What we can go into is a lot of bug fixes when it comes to the ladder itself. They say that they updated the backend. It should process results correctly. This was promised before and there were still some bugs. I really hope they ironed this out. So in 2023, they finally learned how to count wins and losses properly, which was the bane of Battle.net, obviously. Pretty sad that the function wasn't working for such a long time. There's lots of bug fixes when it comes to this. So if you're really interested in that, I advise you to go to the forums of Battle.net and find it out for yourself, because this is not what this video is about. Our video is mostly about balance. For the Blade Master, we start with that since it's a lot easier. Mirror image damage was increased by 15% to 20%. The damage of mirror images was barely even noticeable on one-on-one typical levels. So a little buff there is good. I don't think it's broken. Maybe in FFA, this will be pretty damn strong, but the balance is made around one-on-one and FFA. Sorry, too small of a system, too small of a game mode to have balance around it. The XP that a mirror image gives is changed. It was previously scaling with the level of the Blade Master, and on the PTR this was kind of weird because for level 1 it gave 25 experience, then 30. So it's a little bit changed, as the original XP is still scaling off a Blade Master, but it's kept at 30. So the crazy XP scaling that we had on level 6 and beyond, where dispelling one set of mirror image could give you 240 XP, is gone. All levels give 30 XP per mirror image now, which is a good change. And then Immolation. Immolation is the biggest change in this hot fix, as they call it. Let's call it 1.35b, as Remo did. So Immolation got tackled in multiple ways. It does a little bit less damage on level 1, from 8 per tick to 7 per tick. That is 2 DPS lower. On level 2 and 3 it stays the same, where it was not really overwhelming in general. So tackling this on level 1 is quite nice. Mana drain increased from 6 to 7. So while Immolation is activated, it drains more of your mana, also minimally. When you read this, this is a pure nerf so far. Less damage per tick and more mana for less damage. But for 2 nerfs, there's 1 buff, and that's quite a big one. Immolation activation cost was previously 20, so you press the button of Immolation, 20 mana subtracted immediately, plus the mana you invest into the time it is running. That activation mana cost is now reduced to 1, so you can't really hold the button and spam it and do the same amount of damage for very little mana. That's big. That makes it so you can pay attention. Do I need immolation at this very stage or not? If yes, press the button, use immolation. If not, press the button again, don't use immolation. Previously, you had to make a little bit of a calculation. Is it worth enabling immolation now? Am I staying here for more than 5 seconds to really make it useful? That's gone. So immolation is now a lot easier to use. You can basically spam it, and with attention to your spell, you can have a very efficient mana management. And that's where things get a little complicated. Is it a pure nerf? No. Is it a pure buff? No. It's a little bit in the middle, but which shade of gray is it? A lot of players are already complaining that immolation is now stronger than it was before. So I did some graphs to display the changes of immolation so you can follow it a little better. This, for now, is the pure mana cost. As you see in blue, that is the old mana cost of the previous version. Orange is always the new immolation. So for the first 19 seconds, immolation is cheaper now on the live patch. That's a long time. 19 seconds is a long time. That is definitely a creep camp. Calculated in that creep camps take a little longer now because you do less damage per target with immolation. So for short burst spans, 10 to 15 seconds roundabout, the new immolation is cheaper. The damage graph is pretty straight up. Damage per second per target. The old immolation is always better because just the pure value of damage per second is higher. And of course, the more targets you hit, the more essential this is because that basically doubles the gap between the two graphs. So what about efficiency though? We know the straight values mana cost and we know the straight value damage. So let's merge them together into damage per mana point spent per target. And there it looks like this, and this is pretty interesting. The old immolation did less damage if it's activated for 9 seconds roundabout. 9 to 10 seconds, it's somewhere in between. The new immolation is more effective for the first 9 to 10 seconds and then doesn't scale too well. So efficiency-wise, the old immolation is better the longer it's activated. And that, of course, scales with how many targets you have. This is really interesting what to make of it. And changes, we knew changes should be coming and changes are necessary. We didn't want to use it in a way, though, where immolation is fading out of existence at all. And the first iterations on the PTR of immolation was way too weak. It wasn't efficient anymore to use immolation, just use treants again, and then we're back to keeper meta that nobody really wants. Downside of these changes is, because of the fluidity of immolation now, that makes counterplay a lot harder for all the races. Previously, you saw that the Demon Hunter is activating immolation, you could start kiting. If your opponent doesn't hit you, he's spending mana and it goes into the void. Because he doesn't have any targets, then the efficiency is obviously 0 or even negative. Now, if your opponent sees, hey, this guy is kiting, I deactivate immolation. And once he's coming closer, activate it again. We gotta observe how annoying this is gonna be, how much of a tug of war this is going to be, if this makes the early game super stale and boring, or if there's new ways to play with the freedom that the reduced activation mana cost is giving you. It is cool that they address this. I think the changes are way less extreme than the first versions that we have, and they were always listening to people like Remo, like Dondo, who made a lot of calculations, like Toxie, who also toyed around with this a lot. So Immolation has changed probably due to how the mechanics work in favor of Immolation. But in general, it's a little bit less strong as the spell itself, from the numbers, regardless of the mechanics and the way you play it. Anti-magic shell increased from 300 to 420. That was never touched from PTR 1 straight to the live version. And they give a little dev comment. Increases the number of dispels to remove from 2 to 3. First of all, that's not necessarily true, because different dispels do different damage. For example, for Purge, this would be 2 instead of 3. So they want this to be more powerful. I really don't see the need for this. 300 seemed fine-ish to me. If they want to listen to the people who said, oh, we undeads didn't get anything in this patch to play with. This is not really the way as Banshees were played to a degree. It's the wrong unit for me to tackle if you want to give undeads new toys. And I think this is also really freaking strong. Who wants to dispel that much damage on anti-magic? I don't think that's reasonable at all. So I'm not a fan of this. I think it's hella strong, and I don't think it's necessary. Another thing that I hate with a passion is this one. Fixed an issue where Destroyer's Dispel Magic was not removing anti-magic shell. If you were listening to my old patch videos from patch 1.35, we always mentioned, yep, anti-magic shell is dispellable now, but Destroyers can't do it. And we praised Blizzard so highly that they thought about Destroyers not dispelling this to make Undead Mirror more fun, because there's no reason at all to go for anti-magic shell in a mirror match now. Mass Destros will just reign supreme in every single regard. And now it turns out it was an issue for them. It was just a bug. And they simply forgot to add this mechanic to the Destroyer. This is really sad. I think it's not beneficial to the matchup. I think it's absolutely not necessary at all. It was really cool that Destroyers weren't able to cancel your own magic or the anti-magic. So this is a clear thumbs down to me when it comes to variety in Undead Mirrors. Really, really sad that they implement this. Fixed an issue where workers would still have a repair rate reduction from Liquid Fire even after the debuff duration expired. That's pretty cool. Liquid Fire was bugged even after Liquid Fire was done. So yeah, thumbs up for that. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, there's a little bit of a bug. And there's a bug with maps, because as you saw there, they updated maps as well. And now we take a dive to our Twitter, because we discovered this day prior to the patch. It is absolutely ridiculous. So first of all, good thing is, once again, they listened and they saw the version that we have in the map pool on Battle.net for Echo Isles and Twisted Meadows are outdated. The community produced better maps, and so they updated it to Echo Isles 2.2, which has this expansion in the north and the ways around the expansions here that you know from all the tournament play, and also Twisted Meadows, which is just straight up better and updated and easier to start a game on. Way better version, and they implemented this. They updated all of this, which is really cool. So, hey Neo, what's your complaint then? What's the problem then? Well, the problem is the 4-on-4 map pool, because it looks like this. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. This is literally hundreds of maps that are currently in the FFA map pool. And if you go down the list, this is 4-on-4. Did I say free for all? I mean 4-on-4. 4-on-4 with Lost Temple, 4-player map. 4-on-4 with Last Refuge, Ancient Isles, 2-player maps. 4-on-4 with Extreme Candy War 2005, a fun map. They effed up big time with the 4-4 map pool. This is ridiculous. This is so funny. Last I checked, it was still there, so it's in for like 2 days or more. Gigantic F up. And kind of sad to see. So that's... I leave you with a little laugh here. It's not too bad, I guess. For the FFA players, it's really bad. So yeah, sorry for you. But apart from that, that's the patch. Thumbs up for the continued patching. Thumbs up for knowing what to address. That is the big problems with the ladder, the problems with Immolation and also Blade Master, plus keeping the map pool fresh and updating the map pool. That's all kind of nice. Also some bug fixes to the campaign, etc, etc. So in general, thumbs up. Immolation, keep an eye on it, Blizzard. You might have buffed what you initially wanted to nerf. So we need a few weeks to figure out how the Night Elves adapt and how efficient the mana management with Moonwells is now. And how much impact it has that it does less damage to the creeper itself. Because of course, if you creep a camp longer, it does more damage to you, which results in more moon juice being used. There's a whole dynamic around that with mana usage for Night Elves and Moonwells. And then if it turns out that it's super freaking strong and super freaking frustrating, then add some activation costs back or something that makes the usage or gives a penalty to using Immolation if it turns out to be too strong. I'm excited for this. It's really cool that there's continuous updates, and this is Neo with a 15-minute video on the patch. Hope we can do more of this. We got a lot of tournaments coming up, so we have a lot of proving ground for the new balance. Until then, write in the comments what you think about this and watch some more Warcraft. Hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button. See you soon.